want to begin by taking the opportunity to thank the IAFOR North American Conference on the Arts and Humanities 2014 for providing me with this virtual space to offer my presentation. And thank you to the audience for tuning in. I want to welcome everybody. My name is Natasha Brien. I am a second-year PhD student at the University of Toronto in the Factor in Montage Faculty of Social Work. And today I will be presenting on Photovoice, a public education tool utilized on behalf of prisoners' wives to reduce conflict, social stigma, and oppression. To provide an overview of the presentation agenda, I will begin by offering some contextual information on the original study, which includes the purpose of the study, the research design, recruitment, data collection, and data analysis. One particular finding on which this presentation is based, which is the need to educate society about the reverberations of having an imprisoned husband. Within that, I will talk about participants' rationale for the photography exhibit as the action outcome of the study, as well as a complete list of findings that emerged. I will then go on to provide samples of the photographs that were displayed in the exhibit, and because of the time limitations of the YouTube channel posting, I'm going to limit that to one photo per theme that emerged. And then I will speak a little bit about the outcomes of the exhibit and end with some closing remarks. So I hope you enjoy the presentation. While the outcome of the study is the main focus of the presentation, this section will provide contextual information on the original study. While the literature did discuss wives of prisoners or intimate partners, female intimate partners of prisoners, a lot of the discussions focused on their role in the lives of the men, which looks like helping to reduce recidivism through the support that they offer, helping to reduce certain violent behaviors within prison institutions while serving sentences, transitioning and keeping ties to the community, and as well their roles as bridging relationships between male prisoners and their children. However, little literature focused on what these women's needs are as standalone human beings outside of a caregiving role in which women are traditionally expected to play. This led to the creation of the study, which seek to understand a better grasp of Canadian women's subjective experiences in relation to their needs as a result of having a husband serving a custodial sentence in a federal prison in Canada, and federal prison being a prison in which a man would receive a sentence of 2 years or more. The research design embraced a critical feminist framework. It employed an arts-based Photovoice methodology and incorporated participatory action research, or PAR principles. The PAR principles were incorporated through member checking the outcomes of the study for accuracy, and as well for the participants to come together and collaboratively decide on an action outcome of the study, with the aim of taking the findings past the point of theory towards social action and social change. So this research is meant to be a qualitative, exploratory, anti-oppressive study by aiming to generate subjective knowledge that supports people's actions to achieve freedom from oppression. Recruitment for the study was based on existing relationships, as I have worked within the prison-related community for some years now, As well, the study was advertised in a relevant online forum that's geared towards friends and families of people who are incarcerated, and snowball sampling was also used. In regards to data collection, I conducted one focus group of 5 women, 2 individual interviews, and the participants filled out a demographic form. Data analysis relied on methods of grounded theory. So while there were multiple findings, the need to educate society about the reverberations of having an imprisoned husband was one of the main motivating factors in creating the photographic exhibit. Throughout the process of data collection, a topic that often surfaced was around the stereotypes and stigmas faced by this population. The stereotypes and stigmas were often negative and had major impacts within the participants' lives, impacts that often included sites of conflict and oppression. Examples of which include, but are not limited to, some of the women had to relocate and actually pick up and move to new cities, leaving their homes and their lives that they've spent many years living a certain way to start all over again. Being fired from jobs, so going from having a stable income to being unemployed, which increased the level of poverty endured. Being shunned by some friends and family members, so being socially outcast from intimate circles that once served as sites of supports, but now the dissipation of those communities have resulted in a lot of isolation. Now, while the women, through the data collection process, realized that there is a common thread of having faced quite a bit of social stigma, oppression, discrimination, and conflict as a result of this component of their identity as being a wife or intimate partner of a federally imprisoned man, the women wanted to not only recognize this issue, but construct some sort of a solution or possible solution, working towards alleviating this issue. So what the women generated was the idea to have a photographic exhibit, an installation of their work, and that took place at the University of Toronto, Factor in Natasha Faculty of Social Work, to which academics as well as the general public were invited. And the hope and aim of doing this was to present their narratives, their lived experiences in a bold, frank, honest, open way, so that it would challenge the audience's ways of thinking and perceptions about who these women were and really what they go through, and to humanize the population. These are women, these are mothers, these are partners, these are adult children, to make them relatable to an audience who may not have any contact with the prison system. While the focus of this presentation is on one particular finding, the reverberations of having an imprisoned husband, it's necessary to provide a complete list of findings, only because the next segment is going to lead into some of the photographs presented at the exhibit or installation, and those photographs also touched on some of the other findings or needs that emerged from the study. So the additional findings were the need to grieve, and that consisted of shock, mourning, anger, regaining strength and focus, the need for support, which included psychosocial and practical support, the need for self-care, and the need for communication within the relationship and of systemic information. this segment of the presentation, we'll provide some samples of the photographs that were displayed in the exhibit. Shock was one of the stages in the grieving process the woman described. This photo of the two squirrels is captioned by saying the sentencing was an out-of-body experience. Expanding on that caption, Iva says, "When my husband of 38 years was sentenced, I was in another world. It was an out-of-body experience. I am the outside squirrel visiting my husband, the inside squirrel. I chose squirrels because they represent survival. They are animals that never give up." The next image represents the need for psychosocial support. Amanda took this picture with a little bit of comedy in mind, had the group laughing with the bras representing support symbolically. Her caption is, "I'm fortunate to have good support." Pretty straight to the point. She has had her family, her parents, her peers, friends be very supportive of her relationship with her partner who is in prison. And Amanda said that has helped tremendously in her sense of well-being throughout this journey. The theme of the need for self-care arose amongst the participants, and Pinga captions to this photo, "I dance with the ancestors." She is a woman with Indigenous heritage background, and to expand on this caption, she says, "I burn sweetgrass and focus on deep breathing, as it represents the mind, body, and soul. Sometimes I dance with the ancestors, and other times I talk to the Creator about what I'm going through, where I'm at, and what I need to stay healthy." Because this journey of supporting someone who is in prison is so tumultuous, the women felt it's very important to take the time to care for themselves, to be able to have the energy required to support their partners who are in prison. When someone has a husband or life partner who's in prison, there is a physical distance between the two people. So because of this, the women expressed a need for communication within the relationship. This image shows a cellular phone, and the caption is, "I save each number as his name." So Kitty, in expanding on this, says, "I save each number he calls from as his name, so it doesn't just say the institution or prison name. This humanizes the situation so it feels like a normal relationship." And because there are so many interventions amongst the relationship, you have surveillance, you have people observing in-person visits. So the women try to hold on to what ways they can to keep a semblance of normality, or what feels like normality within the relationship. And this is one demonstration of how Kitty does this. So rounding the end of the presentation brings us to outcomes of the exhibit. Now, recapping, the goals of this photography exhibit for the women were to help reduce social stigma, oppression, and thus conflict. And how can the success be measured? Well, for the women, they said that if one person, or more than one person, people, came to the exhibit and their thinking was challenged or expanded in some way, that it provoked discussion during the viewing of the exhibit and thereafterwards, that they would feel that this exhibit was a success. And based on these markers, the exhibit was a success. How do we know that? Well, we had a guest book that was open for visitors to sign and provide feedback and thoughts that the photographs might have sparked within them. And there was quite an abundance of feedback, and it was very interesting. The audience mentioned numerous times being surprised that never have taken the time to critically reflect on this population's lived experiences and how their thoughts, attitudes, and behaviors may impact this population's sense of well-being. So it triggered a lot of reflection, and people expressed the idea that they wanted to explore this topic further with their peers, with their friends, with their families, have discussions about it, and search deeper about the messages they're getting from media, or where their biases are coming from. So the women were very happy and very excited to read the comments and the feedback, because in doing so, they realized that, this action piece of their research was well worth the hard, long, and emotion-provoking effort it took to get to that point. And so because of the response and because of the measure of success, the women now want to continue to initiate sort of a traveling photographic exhibit in different spaces. So this was in an academic space, so the next space they're hoping would be in more of a public space, like a shopping mall or a library, in terms of reaching the general public who may not attend an academic space. So to continue on with this exhibit, to continue on challenging people's way of thinking, educating them on some of the realities of what wives of prisoners endure, and hopefully by doing so, reducing the hardships that are faced because of the stigma and conflict and oppression. Well, we've reached the end of the presentation, and I want to thank you very much for your time and your focus on this topic. If you find the topic interesting or you would like to engage in further discussion, provide some feedback on the style of presentation and or the topic, please do not hesitate to contact me. My email address is n.brien, B-R-I-E-N, @mail, M-A-I-L, .utoronto, U-T-O-R-O-N-T-O, .ca. And I look forward to connecting. Thanks again. All the best.